Welcome to the Sexy Freedom Media Podcast, a place to discuss pain, passion, and pursuits.
Let's get it. I want to feel alive.
Breathe.
Make some moves.
Protect the throne. This is Sexy Freedom Media Podcast.
Welcome to Sexy Freedom Media Podcast. I'm January Liddell. I'm one of the co-hosts. I wanted to talk today about finance and about debt. This is something we were talking about earlier, and I wanted to continue on that conversation. One of the things that we should be focused on first is, one, our mindset. So take a breather and really feel what it is when you talk about money. I want you to close your eyes. And when I say money, what are the feelings that come out when I say the word money? I'd like for you to write that down. Write those feelings down. Now, if it's a positive feeling, awesome. If you're having these negative feelings, I'd want you to dig deeper into why you're having these negative feelings about money. The second thing I want you to do is when you wrote those things down, those feelings down, I want you to write right next to it why you're having these feelings. There's something magical about pen to paper. And when you put something down, black ink on white paper, there is something that just moves you. It's a psychological thing. So write down your feelings and write down why you're having these feelings. All right. Now, the next thing I want you to do is think about, what type of feeling do you want to have in regards to money? What type of feelings do you want to have in regards to money? So for me, the feeling that I want to have with money is this comfortability and this beautiful relationship that is ever flowing and this positive energy about money. So that is the feeling that I want to have. So write that down. Whatever feeling that you want to have about money, write that down. Take that breather. Sometimes talking about money can be stressful for people, especially if we're in debt. You know, if it's a mountain of debt or just debt in general, it can be, this weight on your shoulders that actually affects your health. Part of getting out of that feeling of stress and lifting up that rock from your shoulders is writing things down and acknowledging where you are at this very moment. Now, the next thing I want you to do is gather all of your accounts, your credit account or credit card account, your loans, your student loans, your subscriptions, everything that you're paying for, your utilities, and I want you to mark it down. You're going to have separate categories. So one is your credit card debt, and then the other thing is your expenses for the month, whether it be mortgage, rent, utilities, your Costco bills, all of that. Now, when you put down your credit card information, write down the name, write down the APR rates, because then that'll give you the idea of which one is your high interest credit card. So write down your APR rates, write down your amount that's due, write down the minimum. And yeah, so that's it. So when you write down your credit card information, write down the name of the credit card, write down the APR rates, write down the amount that's due or your balance, and then write down your minimum. Okay, and then on the other side, of course, write down all your expenses. These are just tips to get you to thinking about managing your debt. All right, so once you have all of that written down, now you actually have a blueprint of where you're at, like how does your finances look at this very moment? All right, now the next thing I want you to do is write down your goals. Write down your goals in terms of how where you want to be in your finances. How soon do you want to eliminate that debt? And write that down. After you write that down, now we're going to make a map. We're going to make a map of how you're going to get to be debt free. Now, I'm not, I don't have a license for speaking to you in that type of way in terms of how to get you debt free, but these are just tips that I've used on my own that has gotten me debt free. All right, so one of the things that I do for my family is that, one, I do pay the high interest expense first. The high interest rate, the APR rate, that is the first one that I pay off, because that's the one that actually that's accruing all these daily interest rates and annual interest rates. And so I want to eliminate that first. So majority of my money goes into that account, and I eliminate that account first. Now, the other things that I've been doing is canceling subscriptions that I don't really use. And you'd be surprised if you look at I have an Apple. So if you look at your Apple and you look at your, subscriptions, there can be certain things in there that you didn't realize you were paying for. So go ahead and eliminate those. The other thing that I do is we have no spend days. So that's another thing that I do is no spend days. In fact, we're trying to do a no spend month. Now, is that challenging? Of course it's challenging, but it's trying to get us to where we want to be. So the no spend days, what I do is I'll look at whatever it is that I want. I'll put it in the cart. I'll put it in the cart, and then I'll walk away from it. And I'll look at something else. So that helps me. Psychologically, it helps me. It makes me feel like I'm buying it, but I'm really not. So I just put it in the cart. Other times I actually note it down. So I have a tracker where I put down the things that I want to buy, how much it was, and it makes me feel good knowing that I saved this much, right? And when I save this much, then I can put it in to paying off that credit card. So these are just some tips. There's obviously a ton more out there. And I'd like for you to really dig deep into where you're spending, where you're spending your money on. A lot of it is looking at your account. That's like the first and foremost, is actually looking into your checking account and seeing where your money is flowing. And that will help you create that map to getting debt free. One of the things that I learned today as I was listening to a podcast was quarterly check-ins. So this couple on a podcast mentioned that they do, instead of a marathon, they do a sprint. So they do quarterly goals. So in this first quarter, what would you like to accomplish? So we got 4 quarters, right? 4 quarters in a year. And each quarter, they have like a goal for each of the quarters. So that's something that I'm going to start incorporating. I like that idea because it breaks it up into chunks. It also seems less daunting for me, instead of this like huge amount of, credit card debt that we have to pay. Now you're like breaking it into chunks. And I mentioned in the other podcast how things like Klarna, Affirm, Afterpay, all these different companies offer like a no interest, you pay like 4 times, right? And you pay it off in little chunks. So that's something that I feel would help in terms of cutting down or eliminating your debt is that you break it into chunks so that that huge amount doesn't seem so crazy and so overwhelming for you. So let's just say you have $100 in debt, right? $100 in a credit card. And you're like, well, I can't pay that $100, right? So now you're like, well, I can break it into 4 payments of 25, right? So you pay 25 1 week. Next couple of weeks, you pay another 25. Next couple of weeks, you pay another 25. And then the following week, you pay it off. So that's, in a nutshell, that's how I would break it down so you're not as stressed out in terms of looking at that credit card debt. All right, so those are just some of the tips, but one of the things that I want to highlight is that your mind frame and your mindset is really where this all begins. So you need to ask yourself, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want to be debt free? How bad do you want to have this monkey off your back, this rock off your back? And you have to do a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you want to be debt free? And you need to ask yourself, why? Why do you want to be debt free? Once you have these questions answered and you have it on paper, it'll be a lot easier for you to tackle what it is that you need to do. So the next following podcast that we're going to talk about is how are you going to, what else can you do to eliminate debt? So there are tips and tricks that we're going to be talking about in another podcast. So I'm really looking forward to talking more about finance. Another podcast we'll be talking about is teaching our children financial literacy, so that they don't get into the same, problems that we did, as adults. So that is one thing that we will definitely be talking about, is teaching children financial literacy. All right, that is it for the day. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe. Please share this. Please give us a 5-star review. Those help as well to increase our numbers. And I really am thankful for everybody that comes on here and listens in on our podcast. I also would like to invite you to ask questions and to, have more of an interactive relationship with us. You can find both Helen and I on Instagram, on Facebook. For me, it's VIP Finance Builders, both on Facebook and on Instagram. I am a licensed agent. I actually handle tax-free retirement accounts. So that is my job. And so I do talk about finance all the time. There's so much to talk about finance. Currently, I am listening to a podcast. I believe it's called the Personal Finance Podcast. I like to inundate myself with everything and anything that relates to money. I do have a different relationship with money as opposed to before. So I'm in a different mindset. And I encourage you folks to level up your mindset so that you don't feel this weight on your shoulders like I used to. All right, that is it for the day. Aloha, everyone, and ahuiho.
Want to hear more?
Visit us at sexyfreedommedia.com.